Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
Hi, Betsy.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Ginger.
Hey, Ginger.
Hey.
Hey, Brad.
How are you?
Hey, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
I just got an email that said it was from Matt. I didn't read the email address as to who it came from. And, hey, have you heard about this? And it was some Republican candidate raising money for the other congressional district that we're not in, wanting to beat Chris Pappas. And I started to reach out and wait a minute. This isn't Matt.
I was going to say, there's two pieces of information in there that should have been clues right off the bat. So,
Well, I don't know who votes which way because I don't look at people that way. And I've been wrong before when I thought I knew. So, but I got partway through a reply, oh, this is interesting, but we don't vote in his district. And I said, wait a minute. This isn't Matt Fry. This is some other guy.
well,
Hello.
thanks for at least reading it when you thought it was me.
Well, yeah, I'll at least read them. I don't always respond to it. Oh, I gotta do my video here. There I am back again. Okay. So who we got? My pen. Hey, Bob.
Hello, hello.
Hello there.
How's it going?
It's going. Where's my picture? Hey, Brian.
Hi. Oh, hush.
What's that cute little rascal's name?
This is Ava. 14-year-old Papillon. He's feisty too.
I see this.
Hey, chill out. Say hi. Say hi. Yeah, she's getting old. 5 pounds of fur. The big one's around here. I don't know where she went. Who's your sister?
Just as long as they're not like mine, whining and screaming and scratching at the door because it's time for their cookie.
Oh, we just had cookies. Chewy's came today. Well, FedEx came with Chewy's. We're all happy.
You talking about your dogs or your husband?
Either or. That sounds like it came from somebody who knows us.
It's Mr. Tudor.
Oh, yes, Mr. Tudor knows us. Okay, who are we missing?
I'm here. I'm here. There I am.
Yes, there you are. How are you, Tom?
I'm live and in person.
That's all we need to start with. Yep.
Ginger, can you hear me if I just speak up?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. I seem not to have a picture. I guess I'll have to take my tired old computer to my computer repair guy. I had to put a new hard drive in like 6 months ago, and I don't know. Everything else works. It's just not the camera. So anyhow, I'm here in spirit.
Okay, sir.
Ted, do you see a little box on the left-hand corner that says video?
All right, chill out.
You mean
Next
live
to-
in start video?
Yeah, try start video.
Gosh, I'll give that a try. And it says Zoom is unable to detect a camera.
Ah,
And I have checked all the settings in my computer and everything is enabled, nothing is turned off. And so I have, I think, a deeper problem. But I will fix it, especially if this pandemic continues for another few months.
well, you can come over and sit next to me.
Oh gosh, I guess I could in a pinch.
Buddies in
Have to wear
COVID
masks.
crisis.
That's it.
Masked, of course.
Yeah, well, we'd have to practice social distancing.
Who are we waiting for? Anybody know?
That's what I'm checking.
Ready?
Eric. Where's Eric?
Yeah, Eric is the only one we're
Yeah.
missing.
No,
Not,
Eric,
not, Eric
Five to the
Buckland is
right.
here.
Oh, no, I've got Eric.
Oh, there's
Where's
Eric.
Betty?
I'm showing, let's see, 14, 15.
Excuse the bright red room that I'm in. If anyone knows the previous homeowner of my property, Steven, you might know, but he was a hot rod guy and loved his stickers, and we haven't painted it yet. Every tool you could ever buy at, online or at the store, it comes with a sticker. They're all that way.
Kinky.
Well, I'll take the red over the Ford blue that my son painted his bedroom upstairs in, actually. That's enough to make you go blind.
That's what I've got. The big, I think this guy was a Ford guy. So over at the bar, there's a big Ford sticker.
Yeah. Mike Moore is the only one we're missing, unless he's popped in and I didn't catch him.
There he is.
Right below you.
That's it.
There you are.
Hey, Michael.
Where's Betty?
Betty Smith.
I thought I saw her signed in here.
I don't see her yet.
I think she was there and
No, I haven't seen her yet.
I haven't seen her.
Oh, this might be Betty. I don't know. who this-
Hello.
I hear the voice.
Yeah,
you-
that's me.
are
I'm
you
on
the
the
phone
phone. My tablet wouldn't get into it.
Okay, so you're calling in for it then, Betty?
I'm calling in on the phone, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, we do what we gotta do, unfortunately.
I changed her name.
Okay. Looks like we're all here.
You're recording and live on YouTube.
Okay, then. Where'd my paper go? Okay, we'll open up the Budget Committee meeting of June 30th, 2020 at, I've got 7:05 p.m. And I need to read our statement. As chair of the Northwood Budget Committee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the Budget Committee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through details located on our website and posted outside the town hall. If for any reason you cannot join or listen to this meeting, please call 603-942-5586. Extension 211. And with that, we need to officially do a roll call. Susan, are you going to
I can.
handle that?
Okay. Mike Joven,
Yes.
Paul Tudor,
Here.
Steve Robinson.
Here.
Brad Hall.
Here.
Okay. Bob Young,
Here.
Matt Fry,
Present.
Betsy Colburn,
Yes.
Dan McNally,
Present.
Eric Buckland,
Present.
Brian Winslow,
I'm here.
Tom Chase,
Present.
Ted Wilkinson,
Here.
Mike Moore.
Present.
Grace is not here,
Grace is excused.
and Ginger Dole.
I am here.
Did I miss anyone?
think
Because I just
Miss
went by
B.
whoever. Oh,
Miss
and Betsy, I'm sorry. I didn't write you down yet. I'm sorry. And Betsy Smith. Betty Smith,
Betty, yes. Thank you.
sorry. And Ginger. Dole.
I am here. Yep,
Okay. All right. That's a lot of people.
it is. That's what I say every time. Okay, our next order of business, we need to elect our chair and vice chair. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Linda, who has rejoined our happy band.
Thank you, Ginger. One quick question, Dan McNally. Did we miss him or is he on? I didn't hear.
I'm here.
Yep.
Very
Oh, okay.
quiet.
All
Yeah.
right. All right, I didn't hear him. All right, thank you.
Quiet.
There you are. Okay, so we're going to take nominations for the position of Chair of the Budget Committee.
I'd like to nominate Ginger Dole as chair.
Ted seconds.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, we'll close the nominations and I will do a roll call vote where you can say yay or nay. Michael Moore,
Yay.
Paul Tudor,
Yay.
Betty Smith,
Yay.
Michael Jobin,
Yay.
Brian Winslow,
Yay.
Robert Young,
Yay.
Selectman Representative Matt Fry.
So seeing as I'm not certain this is a permanent placement for me, I'm going to respectfully abstain from the vote, just out of courtesy to whomever may be in my seat next.
Thank you. Brad Hall,
Yay.
Ted Wilkinson,
Yay.
Eric Buckland,
Yay.
Dan McNally,
Yay.
Tom Chase,
Yay.
Ginger Dole.
Yay.
Okay, I will announce that Ginger Dole has been elected chair.
Got skipped.
Oh, Betsy Colburn, sorry.
Thank you.
And my,
Yes.
Oh, I missed two of you. Betsy,
Yeah, two. Yes.
Steve,
yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Okay. Ginger is duly elected and I will turn it back to her and thank her for her willingness to serve and lead the budget committee.
Okay, so now we need vice chair. Do I have any nominations?
I
Nominate
Tom Chase.
Chase.
Oh,
Okay, we have a nomination. Did we get a second?
I get it. I second it for Tom.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the nominations and we'll do a roll call. Susan, you've got your list. If I do my list, it may not be in your order. Will that mess you up?
No, I mean, Linda's wasn't in my order either.
Oh.
So it's up to you. I can do it.
Okay, I'll let you.
Ginger,
Yes, ma'am.
it actually should be a different order every time you have a vote.
Oh, I did not know that. Thank you. Just goes to show you're never too old to learn something.
Can I
Okay,
ask why?
You're
Can I
killing
ask
me.
why we have to have a different order?
I don't
sir?
think that's a real thing, but.
I know
that's-
I've never done it before, but that's okay.
Okay, if you'd like an explanation, the Board of Selectmen made a decision that while they were on Zoom, they would mix up
okay.
the calling of the names on votes so as to give everybody an opportunity to be able to be the first to vote, or so that it isn't always in a line. The Budget Committee in the past has always gone around and had the same process of roll call votes with names in consecutive order. The difficulty here is you've got 16, 17 people as opposed to 3 to scramble up. There is no town regulation at this point, nor is there anything in your procedures that would require you to scramble it. If the committee wants to discuss that and make a decision, then that would be up to you at this point. If you wanted an actual procedure that you're bound to follow, unless you waive it, then you would need to follow the procedure process for doing that. But you could certainly make a distinction for tonight or just go down through the list. I don't believe there's anything you're going to vote on tonight that is going to be anything other than somewhat advisory. There is no, we're not on the budget. We're simply on expenditures of funds that have already been spent. So whatever you're comfortable with, but that's the
Ginger
reason
and Linda, I stand corrected.
Oh, no problem.
Can we just take a vote?
However you guys want to do it. I can do it. I can mix it up. I can mix it up. It's cool. I can do that.
I personally don't see the need to mix it up. It makes it easier for you doing the minutes if
I mean, it doesn't
they're
matter.
in the same order.
I think when I do the minutes, I'm just going to put it in the same order every time, just for them. I don't know. I didn't know any of that until just now.
I did send it,
Can I-
I sent an email, so I'm guessing that Ginger and Susan did not receive that because I wrote
No, I didn't
No, no.
get that one.
I
Okay,
didn't
well,
see
anyway,
that.
when you get into the budget where your votes are being counted for the purpose of knowing who voted, should you go back and reconsider? I think
Right.
at that point, you would definitely want to go in a particular order, or it's going to be a lot of inefficiency in trying to make sure all those votes are correct.
Correct.
But for tonight, I don't think we're gonna have that many votes. We can scramble it up and Susan will figure it out, I'm sure.
I'll figure it out. I mean, Matt, did you? I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
so the selectman chair has done a good job of shifting things up with much fewer people, right?
with 4 people, yeah.
The thing that's always struck me as funny is that were we around the table, he would simply start to the chair's left and go around the table in the same order every time. So it strikes me as somewhat unnecessary. So I would support your decision to forego that particular additional layer of confusion.
Thank you for that. I
I
think
appreciate
we'll
that. too.
have Susan just do a roll because you've got the names in an order already, and that seemed to work when we were doing who's here.
Okay.
Ginger,
Yes, ma'am.
just to make it official, I move we count votes in standard order.
Two motions on the floor.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got to clear up the motion for vice chair first.
Ah,
But you need to do this before I start doing a roll
No,
No,
they
we
don't need to.
don't.
do
Okay,
that.
okay.
No, we don't.
all right. I don't know.
No, Susan, just.
Okay.
We closed out the nominations. Nobody else was interested in getting put on the spot except for Tom. So if you just
Okay.
do the roll call, that would be good, and then we can move on.
Okay. Betty Smith?
Yes.
Betty? Okay. Mike Moore?
Yes.
Ted Wilkinson?
Yes.
Tom Chase?
Yes.
Brian Winslow?
Yes.
Eric Buckland?
Yes.
Dan McNally?
Yes.
Betsy Colburn?
Yes.
Bob Young?
Yes.
Brad Hall?
Yes.
Steve Robinson?
Yes.
Paul Tudor?
Yes.
Matt Fry?
I will once again respectfully abstain.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And Ginger Dole?
Yes. Okay, so Tom, you are once again vice chair.
Thank you.
And just to move things along, next order of business is reviewing our minutes.
So down on the bottom of your screen, there's a little box that pops up that says reactions. And as Matthew Fry has shown us, you can applaud and you can also show approval.
I think
Mike,
that's a
Matthew?
wave. I thought that was a wave.
Not on my phone.
Yeah,
It's
not-
Not on
Box.
Betsy's phone. Betty's phone, sorry.
but we'll keep that in mind for
Thank
future
you,
meetings.
thank you, Matthew, for that round of applause.
Okay, let's pull out the meetings for January 21st.
Motion to
Way back
accept
then.
the minutes of January 21st.
Second,
Okay, Betty made the motion to approve. Tom, you were the second?
I was.
Very good. Do we have any corrections, additions?
I get one correction on my name. I don't know why. Always, it's supposed to be Stephen, not Steve. But my legal name is Stephen.
Oh, okay. It should be fine now that there's one of you.
Yeah, well, I was a PH for a while and it's just gonna get totally mixed up. It's always with the N.
I'm sorry.
All right, so we need to add the N.
Yeah, the N.
Okay. Are there any other corrections?
I didn't see any.
Okay, seeing none. We need to again do a roll call, which is required when we're electronic, even though it would normally be all those in favor. So, Susan,
Okay.
since there are no others, we'll do a roll call.
Mrs. Dole, Madam Chair, how
Yes,
about if you
sir.
take that little hand thing and put your hand up, like Tom said, for the reaction?
Well, I think we
Just to
just,
show up on
we
the
figured
people.
out in a conservation meeting that wasn't as good for people who are listening to it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, sorry.
Not to mention the fact that the RSA's, if we're doing it electronically, every vote that's taken, regardless of what it's for, must be a roll call. I know, it takes time, but we'll do it.
Okay. Betty Smith,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Since my package included 2 versions of the February 20 meetings and not the January meetings, I will abstain.
Oh,
Ted Wilkinson,
Yes.
Tom Chase,
Yes.
Brian Winslow,
Abstain.
Eric Buckland,
Yes.
Dan McNally,
Yes.
Betsy Colburn,
Abstain, I wasn't here then.
Matt Fry,
I wasn't there. I'll need to abstain.
Bob Young,
Yes.
Brad Hall,
Yes.
Stephen Robinson,
Yes.
Paul Tudor,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and Ginger Dole.
Yes. So I've got 11-4 or 11-0-4. 11 yes, 0 no, and 4 abstentions.
Should be.
Okay, move on to the minutes of February 20th. Do we have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of February 20th.
Second,
Okay, so that's Betty made the motion and Tom seconded. Do we have any corrections?
And same thing with the end for my name.
Sorry.
You know, you could just go with Steve.
Change your name.
Call me Lee for supper. I'm happy.
I don't think it's accurate. I'm sorry if I'm jumping in. I don't.
No, go ahead.
I didn't mean to jump over somebody. I'm on the third page, line 27. It wasn't. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it's not accurate that the business administrator stepped down after being ill. The business administrator had been out on a medical leave at that time.
Okay. So,
I can go back and listen to it and you guys can come back to this, or
no,
I can just-
it's,
okay.
that should be fine.
So just a medical leave.
Yeah, he was out on a medical leave at that point.
I have a question.
Yes, Mike.
On line 29, it says, Mrs. B. Smith made a motion to approve the minutes of January 20th, 2020 as amended. Mr. Morse seconded. Motion carried 11-0. Isn't that what we just voted on?
I thought you guys did already do these minutes, but that,
And see, the minutes that I looked at for the yeah, maybe we did.
That's right, we did.
I just assumed that you knew more than me because I couldn't remember.
Oh, don't ever assume that, Susan.
Well, I think at the time that I mailed all of these out, I was so frazzled with everything that was going on that I just took your word for it.
All right, so if we've already approved them, according to the minutes of the 20th.
Okay.
Well, we already
And-
approved January 21st. It doesn't-
Right.
I don't see anything about the February one we're talking
no.
about now.
Right.
Because you haven't had a meeting since then. So,
Right, so we've got the motion and second to accept the February 20th with the correction that Brian just made. My sense is that we don't need the vote that we just took on the 21st, since the minutes of the 20th reflect that we already voted on it. And probably part of the confusion was on my part because the meeting of the 20th, I wasn't able to attend due to a death out of state. So that's probably why I thought we hadn't done the 21st.
okay.
Are there any other corrections or additions that anyone wants to make?
I want to thank Susan for doing another good job with minutes. I know I've rattled on for a paragraph or so here, but I thought she stated very accurately the essence of what I was saying, and I appreciate that.
Very good.
Actually, I got a question on page 2, line number 43. Says degenerate. Should be that generate instead of degenerate?
I'm sorry, which line was it again, Stephen?
Number 43 on page 2. Says allow this to degenerate. Should it be generate or degenerate?
Right.
I'm not even finding where you're looking,
On page 2 of the minutes on February 20th.
right?
On page 2, line number 43.
Oh, there we go. Okay, okay.
Allow this to degenerate. I would think you probably mean generate, right?
No,
No, I do mean degenerate.
degenerate. Yeah,
As
that is
compost,
correct.
rot down.
Okay, all right. I just was questioning it.
Are there any other questions or corrections for the minutes of February 20th? Okay, seeing none. Susan, if you'd like to do the roll?
Betty Smith,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Ted Wilkinson,
Yes.
Tom Chase. Tom Chase?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Brian Winslow,
Yes.
Eric Buckland,
Yes.
Dan McNally,
Yes.
Betsy Colburn,
Abstaining.
Matt Fry,
Abstaining.
Bob Young,
Standing.
Brad Hall. Brad?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Stephen Robinson,
Yes.
Paul Tudor,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and Ginger Dole.
Abstaining. So this is also 11 yes, 0 no, 4 abstentions. Okay. We got through our minutes. Next on the agenda I see is the review for the school. So if everybody gets their school packet out, and we can turn this over to Mr. Winslow. And if you
Great.
have an overview or anything for us, Brian?
Sure. So the business administrator continued to be on a medical leave. Mr. Waring, who is come to us through the municipal services, was acting as business administrator part-time, just as he is, and I believe he still is for the town. I'm not sure about that. We had our annual audit. There was hopefully you all received the audit review in your packets. And then I have the reports here. They look a little different than we're used to due to the new software and personnel and whatnot. But I'm happy to go through as people wish.
Well, first of all, I would like to pass along my thanks when I had requested the SAU to see if they could increase the size of the font, which they have done, which is much easier for these old eyes to read as opposed
Well,
to the previous reports.
Yeah, these eyes as well. So I agree.
Okay, why don't we start with, is there anything special, Brian, that you know of that we should know about?
I mean, usually I look at the bottom line. We have a surplus here in the general fund. It's listed at $533,825.40. The numbers from what I recall from our last school board meeting where we discussed the budget, it's a little bit higher than what I remember, though my memory could be off a little bit. So it's a little. We were somewhere in the 480 or something, I thought, but maybe that's just my memory playing tricks on me. I mean, other than that, there's obviously some changes to how things actually were spent because of school closing and whatnot, and then some unexpected things that came up due to that as well. But I mean, I think it's probably maybe better to go page by page and answer specific questions, but.
Okay, how's everybody deal with that?
So I did have one question, though. I was just wondering if Brian was saying with the new format, if he could just mind going over the headings in terms of how they differ. In other words, the earlier
Sure.
one, like a general ledger, and now we have an amended budget. In other words, how comparable in rating off the forms from prior years.
So what's printed here, obviously, obviously we don't see like years past. As sometimes we do in this format. You see the receipts PTD. I'm pretty sure that is like just for this reporting period, which is June 1st through June 30th. Well, that was printed out. So that's the first column. I have no idea why the original budget is 0 on everything with this format. The amended budget, I believe, is what was approved, my assumption. And then I'm looking at the revenue report, but if I look at the expense report, then we have the expended year to date, the encumbered year to date, the unexpended balance, and then they give you a percent of what was used. So that's kind of straightforward there. They give the section that you're in at the top, so general fund, default function, whatnot. And then you get where it says function, like regular education total function. That's kind of like the bottom line for an area.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I was more
So if I
curious
go-
in terms of the original budget, why it was 0.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that comes up in this report that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, folks, so should we go through page by page?
Yes.
Okay, so if we look at page 1 of the expenditure report,
You gonna start with the revenue report or not?
we can start with the revenue report. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the revenue report?
Are we
Betsy? All right,
I'm just
sorry,
wondering-
I'll let you call them. I'm sorry to.
No, that's all right, Brian, go ahead.
I'm just wondering why all the new sections with zeros in them were created. For example, the second one down, special education tuition, budgeted 0, Nottingham transportation fee 0, and then there are amounts against them. They were not original accounts when we put the budget together.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that. I know like a number of these, like we always have a line for unanticipated revenue, and that's showing up as 0 too. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
Okay.
So maybe we can just check with Glenn or whomever is doing it.
Yeah, I have one
Right.
more.
Sure.
We can get answers. Betty, yeah, Betsy?
The food service revenue lines are not on here. If those can be added in the future,
Sure.
thank you.
Are there any other questions on the revenue sheet? Okay, seeing none. Page 2 of the revenue sheet is just a grand total. So we can go to page 1 of the expenditure report. Are there any questions there? Since I have to scroll through, if somebody can speak up. Betsy?
Just the first two lines, default for dental insurance and FICA.
I'm not sure where those are coming from, so.
Okay,
Add them to the list.
yep.
As Paul Tudor, also on the report we got in March, we also got a summary sheet for the monthly expenditures. That's not in this report. Is that something that's been deleted or
Well,
in April, I should say?
this is the the same thing. I'm trying to look for my
Yeah,
April.
I think the line that shows you the monthly expenditures, I could be wrong, but I think it's that first column that says expenditure PDT or PTD. And that's for I forget what that stands for, but period to date
Period to
perhaps.
date,
And the
yeah.
period to date is June 1st. It's up in the top right. It says from date 6/1/2020 to date 6/30/2020. So I'm pretty sure that first column is the monthly expenditures.
No, this is on the report 4/1/2020 to 4/30/2020. There was a monthly expenditures report summary that summarized about 10 categories: regular education, special education,
Yeah.
that page. I'm just curious if it was just an oversight or if it was going away. It was, a useful summary page for a quick look at things.
Yeah, no, it certainly is a very useful summary page, and we've been getting it at the school board. I don't know why it's not in this packet exactly, but.
Okay, are there other questions on page 1? Brian, I just have one quick one. It's almost at the bottom of the page. It's tuition, other public school, elementary.
Yeah.
Is that charter schools or something of that nature?
I don't believe it's a charter school. I can't say 100% for sure, but we don't pay for charter schools. I don't believe we pay the special ed
Yes, we
costs for students who are in charter schools. But we do, I believe, place students out of the district for or out of the school for their own, when it's needed for those students. So.
Well, the out of district or the special ed would be on a different line. I know at one point we did make school board did make an agreement for at least one individual where they would pay, and it was somewhere around that amount. And this was probably a couple of years ago. I didn't know if it was continued or not.
Yeah, I don't know of a specific case going on currently. I don't know that I would always know that.
Okay.
But there are other reasons besides special ed so that it wouldn't show up in the special ed numbers.
Okie doke. Any other questions on page 1? How about page 2? Again, I'm going to be scrolling through, so if anybody has anything, please speak up.
So I'll just so I understand this new format a little better, the first column expended PTD is the what was expended during that June 1st to June 30th period, or what was expended through the full year?
I believe that date is just for the month of June on this report, that column, excuse me.
Ginger,
Yes, Betsy.
can we have that column changed to the prior year's full budget, total expended, and not this prior period, which is confusing? That's what we're used to seeing.
Okay,
I will see what I can do.
Yeah, how's everybody feel about that? It can be kind of confusing.
I think this is confusing. The prior year figure was always there and gave us an idea where we were at in comparison to the year before.
I agree. I think we should ask for that change.
Okay, I will ask for that change.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Are there other questions or comments on page 2?
Yeah, the top line,
Yes, Mike.
physical education supplies, the first month outspent the budget, but it's also got it encumbered, going to be 700% above the budget. So what?
Yeah, where you're going to see there in the school board salary line, you're going to see that there's a surplus there. school board members donated their stipend to as a sort of a grant program for teachers to apply for. And the physical education department, we applied for a rock climbing wall, and that was recently installed. So my guess is, I didn't do that level of accounting, obviously, but my guess is that they charged it to physical education supplies, although it's really was a donation from school board members.
Any other questions or concerns on page 2? Okay, seeing none, how about page 3? I'm not seeing anything, so we'll go on to page 4. Speak up if you have anything. Page 5.
What were the athletics stipends for? Can't be doing too much athletics at the moment.
Yeah, there's probably for fall soccer coaches and winter basketball coaches. Those positions are stipend positions. Other sports in the fall and the winter.
But it looks like you've expended almost the entire budget on it.
Yeah, I think,
the athletics in the last quarter anyway.
No, those would have been for, again, for soccer coaches, basketball coaches, referees. Maybe not referees. I don't know if those would be in the stipends, actually.
No, they're actually in another line item.
Okay.
That was expended 100% as well.
Brian?
Yeah, Betsy.
I thought I remember hearing something about they were well into planning the seasons when COVID hit, and that was part of the reason why a lot of sports things have been paid.
Yeah, the stipends, people were paid for the work that they did. So obviously, like the things that would have, the coaching positions that would have happened in April, May, and June, that didn't happen, those were, not billed for, paid for, and whatnot. But people who had done the work, done the planning, and done the coaching prior to that, that's what they were paid for.
And I'm going to toss a comment in here too. I recall, Brian, that back in after the budget went through last year, the administration had come to the school board requesting the addition of a couple of additional athletic teams, and the board approved them. So that could be why, even though you haven't done your spring sports, that could explain why the fall sports ended up taking more money than originally budgeted for 18 months previous.
I honestly, sorry, I don't have a recollection of that conversation. But that's possible, of course.
I'm making a list. And killing ants. Okay. Okay, anything else on, see, that was back on page 5. Was there anything on 6? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. How about page 7? Hearing nothing. How about page 8? Okay, let's move on to page 9. Well, since no one else is speaking up, Brian, I'll ask you because I can't remember. The tech replacement equipment?
I have a question about that as well.
Oh, yeah.
We did approve surplus spending, but as I recall, it was about $10,000 or
Yeah, that's what
not
I,
even that.
that's what I,
So I'm not sure why we're seeing such a deficit there. And that's a question I intended to ask as well at our next financial review.
okay. Add it to the list. Anything else on page 9? Okay, seeing nothing. Page 10. How about page 11?
Is there a reason why they're 10,000 over on secretarial wages? I mean, can't be a lot of secretarial work going on that they shouldn't have been able to make the budget, I wouldn't think.
We did have a staff change. I'm not sure that accounts for all of the difference there. And I can't say for sure, but as the nature of school changed, there was definitely a change in the duties of the secretaries. That might be part of it, but that's one I can ask about as well.
And I would like to point out for everybody that even though the students aren't in the school, most, if not all of the staff is still working. I drive by the school, both the Northwood School as well as Co-Brown, at least once a day on my duty days, and there's always staff. People will still call the school looking for information. You still need secretaries for whatever those comments are worth. Is there anything else on page 11? Okay, how about page 12?
I have Ginger.
Betsy.
Midway down, well, about middle, new equipment and
Oops.
fixtures,
Yes.
$7,980. And it's against a zero line, so my guess is it would have been maybe building repairs, but any idea what it might have been?
I don't know if it would have gone into this line or a maintenance line, but we had a significant problem with the furnace and we had a problem with the water heater in the kitchen. Both of those were larger than that amount, so I'm not sure if that's where that is, or if that was part of one of the repairs that happened there. Beyond that, that's my best guess. So beyond that, I'm not sure.
The heating plant's a little further down, so that's probably where that one landed, but
I'm helping you make a list, Brian.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
That custodian overtime, why is that at 150%? I mean, again, the last quarter,
We
we
had
can't be doing a heck of a lot of cleaning.
Well, actually, the custodians are quite busy in the school doing a lot of the summer deep cleaning and whatnot. And there are still people in the building, so they're doing a lot of extra cleaning because of the sanitation
COVID-19.
requirements, whatnot.
Okay.
But I think that the reason that that's over is actually because in the fall we had some custodian on medical leave for a short amount of, well, not too short of amount of time, but for some amount of time.
Other questions on page 12? It's not me. I put mine on vibrate. Other questions? Okay, let's go on to page 13.
Special ed transportation. At the bottom.
Yeah, what?
Which particular line, Paul?
The whole category, basically, the whole thing's over budget. The whole last, 5519, sorry. The last four items basically on the bottom of the page.
I know for special ed transportation, that can change throughout the year as needs change. The extended school year transportation, that would have probably have come from last July, because that's when the extended school year is taking place. And that would be for the high school too. That would be ESY would be extended school year.
Okay.
All four of those lines are solely dependent upon the students that need those services. And it's hard to budget in advance when you don't know how many students or what the services are that they need.
I mean, during this last quarter, we still doing a lot of transportation work for special ed students and regular students for that matter, because I noticed the full transportation budget is pretty much expended as well.
Yeah, the school board voted to honor the contracts that they had through the year under the condition that the employees of the bus company would still be receiving their wages.
So is there?
And so that's going to be offset. Some of that's going to be offset anyways by the COVID-19 disaster relief fund that'll come through. It'll be marked up as a loss in services.
So if this continues on into the next school year, is anyone looking at those kind of things to try and limit
there's
some
a
of the
task.
impact on the taxpayer?
Yeah, we are for sure. I mean, this decision with regard to the services through this school year, that was made back in March when all this first happened. And at that time, we knew for sure that we would be out until I think it was April 5th. So, that's been changing, obviously, and then we're out for the remainder of the school year. Going back into reopening and even going through the summer, it's really difficult to make these plans right now where the information keeps changing or is not coming out. There's not really many recommendations, but the district, so Northwood, also Stratford and Nottingham, has a reopening task force committee of, I think, about 35 to 40 members of teachers, parents, police and fire department, school nurses, and things like that. And they are working, they're trying to lay the groundwork to be able to realize what kind of situation we have to be in when we get recommendations from the state. And those are hopefully coming out early next month. And hopefully we'll be able to get some recommendations to the school board in July, and we'll be able to figure out what the fall is going to look like. So certainly we are concerned about the costs of transportation are going to be if we have to spread students out, 6 feet on a bus, for example, if that's even going to be practical. But yeah, there's a lot of people. It's certainly on our radar to say that there's a lot of things coming up. We don't really know what it's going to look like yet. We're hoping to get some guidance, and we're hoping to see how realistic we can follow the guidelines.
Are there other questions on page 13? Okay, seeing none, page 14.
I couldn't find Sing on page 14 in your music.
I've had this smartphone for a couple of years, and this is the first time that's ever done that. I have no idea how it did it. I'm going to put this away.
Possessed.
I'm sorry?
It's possessed.
That I can believe.
Can we make sure she makes the minutes on that one, the recording?
There's always a clown in the group. Anything else on page 14?
I'd like to ask you to just go through the total for general fund numbers and
okay. So the first
understanding about what those numbers mean.
Sure. the first column, it says expended PTD, that's period to date. So in the month of June, $909,171.75 were spent, as I understand it. The original budget column of zero is zero all the way through the chart. I don't know what that column is. I'm not sure why that's zero there. The amended budget, I believe, was the adopted budget number, which is $11,366,106.50. The expended YTD, that's expended year to date, that's $9,924,559.22. That's what's been spent since July 1st of 2019, I believe. Encumbered year to date, so this is still for purchase orders that have gone through and been approved and whatnot, or things like that, that the checks haven't gone out yet, but they're in the process of working through the purchase orders. That's $907,721.88. That's what that column is. The unexpended balance, that's where we see our surplus. It's $533,825.40. And then the last one, percent used. If you figure out the percent of what's remaining compared to, or what was spent compared and encumbered compared to what was budgeted, we have used 95.30% of the budget. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yes. And
Okay, thank you.
And can I take that to the bank?
Well, at this point, there's still a few things that could change in this budget, despite the fact that it's June 30th. It closes out officially. I'm sure Ginger and Betsy can help me. It's either September 1st or September 30th that the paperwork has to be filed. There'll be a vote on the retained fund balance. That could change things a little bit. Usually doesn't do too much, but could. So pretty much, if it's not encumbered yet, it won't be after tonight, because today is the 30th. So that's pretty close to where we're going to be.
And I understood in the past that there have been expenditures that were sort of wish list. If we had the money left over at the end of the year, this is where we would put it.
Yeah, that would have already.
Is that already in the encumbered monies?
Oh, do you mean like our capital? Maybe it's not the capital reserve fund, but those funds that are approved, like the tuition reserve fund and whatnot. I'm not sure when that goes through. If you're talking about sort of board discretionary spending from the surplus, all of those have gone through probably back in late April or early May at the latest.
Okay.
So Brian?
Yeah.
Betsy.
This bottom line does not include Fund 4 food service. That's all missing, the section that's missing. So the balance is going to be less than that because of the food service expenditures.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that. Maybe that's why. I don't know why it's not in this report, and that maybe that's why the number that we saw at our last meeting when we were discussing, I recall it being a little bit lower. So
it was.
That could be what's going on.
So can you just bring to their attention that we want Fund 4 on here as well as Fund 1? So we have all of it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments about the school's expenditure report?
I have a comment about the audit, but I'm not sure if we're done with the expenditure part yet.
Well, you hold that thought one second. Does anybody else have anything regarding the expenditure report?
I have a comment. Actually, I'm just reminded looking at this last page. I meant to say this before. If you look at that capital reserve fund, building and grounds, and there's the $38,240. I believe that is for the replacement of the sign out front. That fund was added to through the vote of the town. There was like an additional surplus, like a one-time adequacy grant sort of surplus funding that came through. And the town voted to put that into the capital reserve building fund, I believe.
Yes.
And we withdrew from that fund to replace the sign. So that, I mean, that's in the works. I'm not sure when that will be in place. We're hoping sooner rather than later. And the sign is a digital sign out front, and it's offset a little bit, or well, not a little bit, it's offset, I think, $11,000 by the insurance. But
That's
I just want
correct.
to let you all know you're going to see the sign being replaced at some point.
So what was that approved with?
That was approved back in March, the vote, and you'll probably recall it was kind of strange. There was adequacy grant funding that came through as a one-time grant fund. That was additional to what we typically get for adequacy grant funding. And we put it into
like
a warrant.
The $90,000 thing?
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, and we put it into a warrant to go into the building and grounds fund, which the town approved, and then we withdrew from the building capital reserve fund, building and grounds, for the replacement of the sign with a digital sign.
So, but the town didn't approve to replace 40,000 for a sign, right? I mean, you guys.
No,
did.
that was a school board
Okay.
decision.
Okay. Because I've been asked a lot about electronic signs. I said, I've never seen anything in the budget for one, but I guess we have one now.
Yeah. Well, we will have one. It was approved by the school board. So.
Are there any other questions regarding the expenditure or revenue reports? Okay, Ted, you had a question or comments?
Yeah, a comment about the school audit. Well, first of all, I want to thank Brian for your diligence in reporting back to us and fielding a bunch of questions. This is
Well, thank you. You're doing my
and
best.
especially given the fact that I know you're dealing with some new programs and software and procedures, and so columns aren't quite right. So clearly it's a work in progress, but that's okay. What I wanted to say about the budget is, the audit is how strikingly similar this audit is to the draft audit that we got for the town dated 10/22/2019. It's damn near word for word, except for the specific items that are identified as significant audit findings. And I just want to go on to say that this is actually a very helpful format. This is what audits are supposed to do. They inform their clients of things that need to be fixed and repaired so that things go better in the future. Some of the items called out in the school audit are repeat comments. Well, we got a number of repeat comments back in the draft town audit. And I just want to say that in both cases, these are handy documents. They are roadmaps telling the client what they need to do. And I think that the school is well on their way to doing it. And I sincerely hope that the town is as well.
Amen.
Yeah, thank you. It particularly, like, it kind of bothers me to get repeat comments. It's something I do want to look at this year. It's been a challenge, as it has been for the town, I'm sure, with changing business administrators or business administrators out on leave in our case. But yeah, I do find it frustrating that our fund balance policy, like, I know that we have one, and I know that it just needs to be reviewed and reaffirmed. And I'm pretty sure that will happen before the next audit goes through. But it is, again, it's frustrating. And I do agree with you that these comments are a good document to help us guide us on what we need to do. So thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding the school district's audit? Okay, any final questions for the school?
I just am looking at the enrollment report, and there's a lot of stability in terms of the numbers of the enrollment of the size of the classes in the elementary school. There's one small class at Co-Brown that's only 35. And we lose 59 students graduating, if I understand this table, but we have 47 coming in. So who knows what, but that at least will start with well fewer students in the school. And I will always expect those that minus 12 will be somewhat erased by people who realize what a great educational opportunity Co-Brown is and come to live in Northwood.
Yeah, I mean, it's of course, it's a challenge to budget tuition for, who's going to be, when we're doing the budget back in October, November, December, what is actually going to look like the following year through the full year. We do the best that we can. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. We do have that, tuition reserve fund, which helps in a case where we get a lot of influx. I will say earlier this school year, we did have a lot of students move in. This number that we're at 402, I think we were down at like 367 or something at the beginning of the school year. So things have gone up throughout the year and then kind of stayed there. So, obviously not a lot of movement has happened in the last few months. We'll see what happens in the summer, of course, but that's where we're at.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else for the school? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the town. Matt, you're up.
All right, let me unmute. So let me preface this by saying that I am a bit of a pinch hitter here this evening. So I'll do my best to answer any questions that come up and share what information I have. But please don't be offended if there are questions that I'm simply going to have to say. I'll track that down for you. So be patient and bear with me. So just by way of a quick update in terms of our finances and our financial systems, I'm sure you know that our finance specialist has moved on as of a couple of weeks ago, I believe now. We have already a couple of applications that we've received in terms of refilling that position. In the meantime, our contracted workers are still doing a good amount of work, as well as having approved a new finance assistant, or gosh, I'm forgetting the exact language of what we called that position, but it's basically a deputy finance specialist.
Can I ask a question on the finance person? Was that their choice, or was that a removal by you?
It was not a removal.
Yeah, and basically that's
say.
a personnel issue, Paul.
That just brings me to the second question then, which is, do we do exit interviews with these folks to see, because it seems like the turnover, it still seems a little high. And are we doing any exit interviews to see why they're not staying?
I know that we're offering exit interviews and asking all departing personnel to complete an exit interview. I can't tell you for sure how many are actually availing themselves of the opportunity.
Okay.
So the staff is definitely, doing their best to fill that gap while we're missing our finance specialist. We did just complete the audit. We're waiting the findings. And I know that we actually have been spending a lot of time specifically trying to track expenditures related to the COVID-19 response. And that's sort of an additional layer of onus on the finance department and all the staff in town hall. So everybody's cranking away, trying to do their best, and with what we've got.
Now I can close my door. Okay. My dogs heard something and decided the world was coming to an end. Sorry about that, folks.
That's dog life.
Oh, it is. It is. They think they big bad brutes. Okay, you good, Matt?
Yep.
Okay. In that case, we'll do the same thing for the town that we did for the school, and I'll keep notes of any questions, Matt, and then.
And I'll do the same. We'll do it together. Yep.
Yep. Okay, questions on page 1.
Ginger, what budget are we looking at? The one we got emailed today?
No, we are not looking at the one you got emailed. You're looking at the one that came in your packet in the last week. At the date is June 16th at the bottom left-hand corner.
Yep.
So we are skipping over a review of the town end of year 12/31/19 on the agenda.
Yes, because we do not have those finalized reports in a legible format. Those reports are the ones that Linda emailed to everybody today.
Okay.
Later this week, hard copies will be mailed to all of us. We can review those at our next meeting, which is a topic of conversation as we get down through our agenda.
Got it.
So what we want to be looking at is the report that was dated June 16th, 2020, the bottom left-hand corner, for the accounting period January 1, 2020 to 5/31/2020. So does everybody have the correct report?
So I'm going to struggle because I actually don't think I have a copy of that particular report. June, I have multiple reports from multiple sources. I didn't, so whereas I was
Don't
the
feel
sort
bad.
of pinch hitter,
Do you want me to forward it to you right now?
that would be great.
Okay, hold
Susan,
on.
thank you.
I have to find it.
Now, I know that the selectmen do this on a regular basis, where at this point, someone makes the suggestion of a break. Do we want to take a couple of minutes while Susan is looking for that to give Matt an opportunity to be able to pull it up so that he knows what we're talking about?
I'm in.
Sure.
Sure.
I do have one question before we break.
Okay, what would that be, Brad?
Well, I noticed that the report we got electronically today in email is down the bottom. It's dated 6/8. Yet it looks like the numbers are. Looks like actually a later report than the one we're talking about tonight, which is dated 6/16.
Okay.
I'll
I
be
just
honest.
sent it-
Go ahead, Susan.
I just sent it to Matt, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
I know that those reports that Mr. Colby prepared after our discussion this morning, that Linda emailed to us later this afternoon, everybody got them. I have not had the opportunity to pull them up to see what they are.
I was just curious about the timing because it looks like a later
Earlier.
report, number-wise, than the one we're going over tonight. Yet it's dated 2 weeks earlier. I'm just curious. That's
Yeah,
just
and
a
the other three are dated 6/25 and 6/16, I think. But the one you're talking about, the final two columns are dated 3/1 to 4/30 in that report. Even though the rest of it says 1/1 to 6/30.
Now I'm really confused about what it is you have.
That's the one dated 6/8. If you look at the amount remaining and the percent remaining, the date ranges are 3/1 to 4/30.
Well, I have a more recent operating budget expense report that's dated as being printed on 6/16. It says that the reported period is January 1st through May 31st.
Yeah, that's the one they mailed to us a week or so ago. This the one I'm
Correct.
talking about, the one they emailed us today.
Ignore the ones you got emailed today,
Okay.
because you're going to be getting hard copies of those.
If they're the same ones, they'll just be as wrong.
I don't know if they are or not. As I said, I haven't opened up the attachments yet to look at them, but for tonight's meeting, we're utilizing the ones that were mailed to us that we got last week.
Okay, just glad I didn't waste a lot of ink and paper printing them.
Yep. And in the future, well, that's why Linda had indicated that here they are and that hard copies will be mailed out later this week. In the future, we won't have this confusion because we'll be getting our timely reports and in the format that we can utilize.
So while we're sitting here at the end of the second quarter on June 30th, we have before us a document that's the first 5 months of the town budget.
Correct.
Now, the agenda says that we were going to consider the first quarter from January 1 to March 31, and then we were going to review April 1 through May 31. But what we have here is a 5-month document.
Correct.
So those two things are being, in a sense, combined.
Correct.
I'm with you 100%.
I'm glad somebody is.
Me too.
It has been confusing to say the least.
However, the format of this, unlike the school's materials, are more familiar to me.
The town is still operating on the same system that this, or a very similar, if not same system that the school used to have, but the school got a new system last year. That's why their reports are looking different. Matt, how are you feeling about going forward? Do you need a few more minutes?
So the issue I'm having, Susan, the ones you just forwarded to me are the ones that Linda sent this afternoon, which
Yes.
are not the ones that we're going to be using for our
Oh.
discussion. So do you
Oh.
have the one, what is the date again, Ginger, of the one we're going to use for our discussion tonight?
6/16/20.
Do you have the
Okay,
report
I'm
dated
looking at
6/16?
that. I can send it to you. I have it electronically.
Oh,
Okay, that's,
okay.
you want the
If you-
report number, Linda, to verify?
No, I'm looking right at it. It's the one I got from,
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that's what you were talking about.
yeah.
And I apologize for being out of sorts here. That's,
Well, I don't know,
Hey,
guys. What are we gonna do about him?
Do I have what you guys are talking about? I don't think I have it.
Ginger, 30578 is the one I'm looking at.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I got.
Oh, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a report number. Oh,
Yeah.
Correct.
oh.
Are you taking 5 or not?
Hey, Ginger, did you fill that glass behind you yet?
Did I do what?
Fill that glass that's behind you yet?
I have a glass behind me? Oh, that one. That's for when I get done with the meeting.
Yeah.
You guys see my martini glass? It's huge. Yeah, why don't we take another 5, guys?
All right, I'm sending it out right now.
Yeah, but I'd
That's
like to
fine.
offer Matt a few minutes to be able to take a look
Sure.
at it. And
thank you.
Great time.
And thank you, Linda, for
All right.
sending that.
we're gonna take at least
I'm
5,
sending
guys,
it to
so.
your. I'm sending it to your Town of Northwood address.
Yep, that's great.
Okay.
Linda, did you send that to me?
No, Lisa sent it to me.
Oh, then I sent that to Matt. I thought I forwarded that to Matt. Okay, I'm getting really confused here. I don't know what's what.
Oh, you know what, Susan? You sent me an email late morning or mid-afternoon, and there was no attachment in it. I think that's
Oh,
wrong. That's,
well,
that's
yeah,
probably
my-
what it was.
my internet was being wonky today. So I was trying to do everything from my phone. Ugh. I'm sorry.
No, it's
I
certainly
think I
not your fault.
completely confused myself.
Well, then I had the ones that Linda sent. I had asked you for stuff, and then once I reminded Hal that I was covering this meeting tonight, he started just piling stuff onto me. So
So maybe he had the school stuff.
it's been one of those days. We probably did.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's late.
Linda, are you still there?
Yeah, I am. I don't know. I'm gonna send this in a second. I don't know what happened. I had it and I saved it and I'm trying to attach it and it like went somewhere else. Bizarre, but
The miracle of the computer age.
well, between having okay, here it is. Okay. Save as. Why is it not? Okay. Well, I don't know what I'm thinking. All I have to do is just forward it to you. I don't know why I'm thinking I have to. Oh, I don't know. It's late. I'm thinking I had to download it, save it, and then send it, but I don't have
No,
to do
you
that.
don't need to do that.
It's getting late.
I got up at 4 this morning to do some striper fishing, so
Oh.
the fact that I'm still functional is a miracle.
Catch anything?
Yeah, a couple of decent fish, no keepers, but it was a gray and rainy day out at the mouth of the river in Kittery, but it was beautiful to be out there.
Okay. You should,
Okay.
I think this is it. This is the number that he read off for the report and the 6/16 date.
Great.
I'm just, the one computer I have, the regular computer, then I have the remote on a different screen, then I have another computer I'm sitting in front of, so I don't have to get into that one over here.
All right,
So-
I've already got it, Linda. Thank you.
Okay. So I just got a few too many things opened up.
Well, everybody's coming up to speed. I'd like to make sort of a generic comment. I see that there is now no longer a line item for, what do we call it here? Health and dental. I recall going back and forth and figuring it out when we were doing the budget last fall, and it was explained by the TA that the health and dental was going to be assigned to a different line and it would no longer show up as part of that particular person's or department's expense. And okay, that was fine. And that seemed to be how the budget was put together. I was then very surprised to see the first quarter report. And I'll grant you that's not the one that we're about to go to. The one we're about to go to has been corrected from what I can tell. But the first quarter from 1/1/2020 to 3/31/2020 still had like salary of the town administrator and then health and dental for TA. And
Ted, could I interrupt for just a minute, please?
yeah, sure.
You should probably wait until everybody comes back on so everybody can hear this.
Oh, okay. I thought most people were here. That's fine. I wondered where.
Well, I think it
where the
would be,
money
I think it's a good question and
Okay.
certainly we want it on the record of the
Sure.
recording as well, please.
Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you. Susan, are you turning the recording on and off? Oh, I guess she's on break.
According to the screen, we're still recording.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I was here. I was trying to look something up.
Oh, okay.
It's still recording. It's still on YouTube. For breaks, we don't really shut it
No,
off.
that's fine. Ted had a good question he wanted to bring forward, but I saying it would probably other people would want to know the answer.
I'm just trying to figure out what emails I got and what I did. And I'm very confused now. I think I got everything, but
Actually, you did get that email.
with the expenditure report.
Yes.
And then
But
I tried to send that to Matt today, but then I was trying to do it from my phone and it didn't work. They aren't miracle
got it.
devices.
The date was that you got it was Friday, June 19.
Right.
And truthfully, I'm sure I have this report sitting somewhere in a meeting packet from the last several months, but finding it would have been a bit of a trip. So
I have a feeling I just put it in the recycling bin yesterday. I've had stacks of papers that I've brought home for every meeting.
well, Madam Chair, I've got the correct document in front of me. I'm ready to roll whenever you're ready to resume the meeting.
Okay, do we have everybody back? Let's see. Betty, are you still with us?
I'm here.
Okay.
Dan gave the thumbs up.
Who's in here?
Stephen? There you go. And I know that Ted's here. Looks like we're all back.
Good.
Okay, Ted.
Yeah, I just comment and a question. I'm glad to see that this current iteration, that is the 616 version that we're looking at, is properly, no longer carries a separate expenditure line for health and dental for the town administrator and various other positions. And of course, we discussed all that last fall, November, December, when we were doing the budget, and the TA explained that there was going to be a change in accounting and they were no longer going to list it that way. It was going to hit some other line elsewhere. So, okay, that was fine. I was then surprised to see in the first quarter report ending March 31st that there was still this, salary for town administrator, and right underneath it, health dental TA for another $5,200, and the same pretty much throughout the executive, health and dental, and the police, and on and on. I think the only department that didn't show that as a continued expenditure, contrary to what we had told would happen, was the town clerk and tax collector. Then now in the new current report, that has gone away. So I'm glad. Congratulations on somebody having figured that out. I still don't know why the first quarter report was set out as it was. My question is, how is the town paying for this? I mean, obviously, we're still covering workers' health and dental in one way or another. So where does that show on the budget?
Would you like me to tell you, or go ahead?
Oh,
Matt.
go for it, Ginger. If you've got a quicker explanation, please.
Yeah, it's actually on page, bear with me for a second while I find it. It's under personnel administration on page 6.
Excellent, thank you.
But halfway down, and I can offer you an explanation as far as why the reports differed, which is what I discovered today when I was reviewing with the interim TA and one of our finance people who's assisting us. There have been multiple style reports that have been created in the last year. And those individuals who were responsible for creating the report that was produced at the end of April that went through March 31st
Yeah.
picked the old format instead of the corrected one based on what was presented to us for the budget season last December, what
Right.
was approved by the town.
Right.
Which is why you got new documents sent to you via email today, because the original ones that they were going to pass out to everybody had numerous corrections that needed to be made, which is what I addressed this morning and showed them why those weren't going to work for us, because for some reason a program automatically took a particular line number 300 and didn't care what the line descriptor said or what it was supposed to say. It read it off the same descriptor for every single department with that specific line number. So in any event, that's why they
Okay, well-
they are now getting the format and everything down that we're going to need so that we can compare apples to apples and not be looking at a completely different format.
Thank you, Ginger. And again, I appreciate the fact that it has now been fixed. I mean, it's
It
correctly listed in the current version, and that's a huge step in the right direction.
Correct.
Hey, Ginger, just Paul, too, I just want to thank whoever it is that took the time and the pain to print these, to send these things single-sided.
That's a request that the budget committee has always made, and you lucked out for the quarterly because typically we will
The
work
quarterly
with a
in
double-sided for a quarterly and the single-sided come December.
Right.
So this is a treat for us today.
Ginger,
Yes, ma'am.
while we're on corrections, the first column, last year period, we've always had the full year there. So December 31st, 2019 figures would appear in that column. And I'd like to see that back. Same request I just made of the school.
So I do know that we are limited with the number of columns that can be put into
No,
a
in
report.
place of this one, Matt.
In place of this column you'd like to
Mhm.
see, you got it. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I guess just instead of showing the current period, you know, for whichever month the report is run for, shows the full year's expenditures from the previous year. Okay, are we set to start going through with any questions we have?
Go for it.
All right, page 1. Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing nobody else has any, I do regarding the town administrator salary line. It appears in this particular case, having the column that we have, that there's just under $100 difference between what was paid for this up to this point in 2019 and 2020. I had been informed by another member of the Board of Selectmen that this position was not being paid out of the town budget because of a disability claim. Do you know anything about that current status, Matt?
So without getting too close to the line of personnel related issues, my understanding is that we pay out and then receive payment back from the insurance folks. So it's going to
No,
get paid out. and then-
incorrect. If someone is workers' comp and long or short-term disability, they're all the same. Once it's approved, those payments go directly to the individual employee. Now, the employee, if they have time on the books that is unused, vacation or sick time or whatever, they can utilize part of that to make up the difference between the 66% that workers' comp or short or long-term disability pays and their full pay. But disability is not reimbursing the town. If in fact disability is coming into play and we've been paying the full salary for an individual out on disability or workers' comp, that individual is going to end up paying the town back for the difference. So it might be wise if we, not we, you as selectman representative, verify what that status is, because I can recall a selectmen's meeting that I watched about a month and a half ago. The question was raised if the finance person had seen any disability paperwork, and I heard her say no. So
I will follow up on it. My only other thought is if there's not another line where the contracted interim TA from MRI would go in, that may be filling that line out as well.
And I was going to ask if that was the case, because I didn't find another line in the budget, although the interim TA and I did discuss potentially adding a line for those types of circumstances for your new budget.
Yep.
That we'll be looking at in December.
Matt?
So perhaps we could get a breakdown on that particular line.
I will bring it back to town hall. Absolutely.
Okay. Betsy, did I see your hand up?
As far as the contracted service should not be tied to that line, because that line is usually, any salary lines are tied to your FICA and your Medicare. So percentages, so it should show separately if it's contracted service versus.
Right. And I know that we have several contracted service lines throughout the budget. And again, it's a matter of where things get coded and how. So you're right. I mean, we would certainly need to make sure that everything, the math is shaking out properly. So I'll bring it back to our finance folks and I'll be happy to report back to you on that.
Terrific.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions on page 1? Okay. Ted, did you have something?
Nope, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Then let us move on to page 2. Oh, come on, guys. I'm not going to do all of
I'm
these.
guessing the postage is probably due to nobody being in town hall. I mean, is that why it's so crazy out of whack?
My understanding is that the postage is exorbitantly high. Well, I don't want to call it exorbitant. The postage is high because we are mailing so much as opposed to hand delivering things within the office. Yes.
If I can add a comment to that.
Please, Linda.
If you're okay with it, Matt.
Oh, of course, Linda.
The postage machine in the past has broke down by departments, and you will see that there's postage funding in the different departments, but it's because it's no longer being divided into the department lines, that one number is probably much higher because of that. Like, for example, in my planning board budget, it's say 750 under postage, and we've done mailings, but it may not show any postage being spent because it no longer reads by department.
Right. In our proposed budget, we collapsed that into a single postage category. That's right.
Wait.
Are there other questions on page 2? I'm sorry?
I was just a general statement, I guess, and it occurs on page 2, but contracted services in general, extremely over budget in basically every category?
So we have a lot of contractors in right now. As has already been mentioned, we've had a fair bit of turnover in town hall, and when that happens, there's some contracting to fill the gap. We've had some contracted folks in on the financial side of things, trying to help right the ship, as it were. So that has definitely added up. But as far as it's a necessary expenditure in my estimation, and one that is well worth it, even though it's a little over.
Besides finance, Matt, are there other contractors helping out?
Currently, the interim TA, and that is where I would assume we'd probably see that go. So two working on finance, the interim TA. I think those are our 3 contractors at this moment.
Perhaps it might be wise, Matt, if we could request a breakdown of that line as well, just so that we're all aware of what's going in, because there are regular contracted services such as the copier, and there's probably a few others that I can't.
Sure, and there's a lot of things that so in terms of beyond personnel, there's all sorts of stuff that are maybe living in that line, and I'm not entirely certain what's in there. So yeah, I can ask for a larger breakdown of that line.
Just to be sure that, is it all service contracts, or does it include salaries of contracted workers?
Yep.
Okay.
Ginger?
Yes, Betsy.
Can we also request that you keep them in the category they belong in, like the TA stays in the town administrative section, and the contracted service for finance stays in the finance section?
I mean, that makes sense to me. I just don't know the intricacies of whether our system will allow us to break that out of one budget line into multiple categories, but I can certainly bring that request back to finance.
Okay, it should.
I think basically it's just picking a particular line and asking it to list everything that was charged to that line. That's what's been done in the past anyway.
Sure.
I'm hoping that the same thing can still be done now.
So along the same similar note, there are no encumbrances in here for any salaries at all throughout the whole budget.
That is strange.
Yeah, they should be encumbered out for the year. So we have an idea where we're at.
That would make sense to me.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the bottom of page 2. I'm looking at, and actually on to page 3 as well, the voter registration, the salary for the supervisors and the clerk, then going on to elections for the salaries. Look like they're pretty much overspent and quite a bit more than this time last year. And I believe we've only had one election so far this year, and that was the March election, although we did have the 2 deliberative sessions.
True.
We had the primary as well.
Okay, forgive me, I'm going a blank here. When was the primary?
February.
February.
That's right. Okay, all right.
But still, these are awful high for even the raise that you added on to those.
So I was going to say we had a raise. I believe added a couple of folks. I don't know in terms of comparing apples to apples how many were in this budget last year, but we added some folks in. We gave a pay increase, and this is a year with a lot of elections. So,
But we budgeted for 4 elections.
right.
Yeah,
So-
and that was my concern, Matt, was if we're already short with the elections we've had so far this year, we know we've got the September primary and the November general, and yet basically what I'm saying is money's got to be found somewhere else in the operating budget to be able to cover those expenses.
Yeah, and you know, I think we knew that we would overspend that section when we gave folks those raises for working the polls. It's an important job that needs to be done, and we need to incentivize people to do that work. So we'll certainly, we're aware that that's going to be overspent.
Don't forget, this is also the default budget, so you're working on a 2018 assumption.
Right.
That's correct, right? To say we budgeted for 4 elections is actually not really correct with these numbers.
Yes, it is. We did
No,
4.
We got the default, but they got the default budget. So in the proposed budget,
Correct.
they budgeted before, but the default budget didn't account for that.
So we're definitely going to wind up over there. It's the reality of living in the default. We'll find it.
Okay, anything else on page 2? How about page 3?
I have one, and it's along the same line as before. Down near the bottom, the contracted service line encumbered. So I don't know if that's for the MRI person.
I'm assuming it must be.
Okay.
All right, so that would sort of shift my answer for the contracted services above. I would assume is not personnel based. It's going to be other services. So I think we can definitely get a more detailed explanation of what's falling under that contracted services above.
Because I thought you had encumbered for both those 2 positions recently in a Board of Selectmen meeting. But they're not.
I know that we're doing, you know, at least for one of them, I think we're doing POs at 10,000 at a go. And I don't remember the last time we signed off on one. It doesn't feel that long ago, but time has a tendency to sort of,
yeah, 2 meetings
it's
ago.
mushing together for me these days. So.
Yeah, and in any of these breakdowns that we're suggesting, Matt, will certainly help your board get a better handle because of the changeover in finance personnel. It'll give the 5 of you now a better chance, better understanding of where you're at with the overall budget, because the
Sure.
last thing you want to do is to be going into a deficit.
Yep. Nope. I'm in agreement.
Anything else on page 3? Moving on to page 4.
Ginger?
Yes, Betsy.
Hey, Matt said the audit's done, but yet nothing's been encumbered on that line at all. So it should have been a contract you did with them?
I don't know if that was, I mean, I would assume that was probably a contract set up early on, and it probably should have been encumbered, being as the period that this report is reporting out on, it, you know, would not have contained that payment if it was a lump sum paid at the end. So again, I'm not certain of the answer to that in terms of how that contract is laid out, but yes, it would make sense. We knew roughly what it was going to cost going in, so I agree that those types of things should probably be encumbered.
Okay.
Anything else on page 4? I had to stop and think what page I was on. Okay, moving on to page 5. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to go to page 6.
there a reason the workers' comp is so high?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it could be additional personnel. The workers' comp had been running fairly consistent the last few years, as I recall, but
It's 3,000 over for the half year.
So I will say that this budget wouldn't have contained
default budget.
Well, so it's again, yeah, it's the default, and we added the new public works foreman position, which I'm guessing isn't cheap in terms of coverage.
Have you hired him or her?
Yep. Yeah, we hired Chris Brown at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
But that replaced 20 other positions, so it should pretty much equal out.
Yeah, except the number of hours and the pay grade and all of that is going to change that bottom line on workers' comp, I would assume. Maybe not up to that $3,000 limit, but it's certainly going to have an impact.
I'm just wondering, I mean, in conversations with Primex, they've begun requesting that all elected officials be covered under the workman's comp. Did we get them covered prior to this, or might that also be something new?
No.
I don't remember ever having a conversation to that end as a board. It may have happened at the administrative level. Not that I don't think so, though. I mean, it's probably a good idea. It's my feelings that are at risk of being hurt more than anything else on any given week. So I don't know if that's given full coverage.
well, you guys are safe. We're meeting by Zoom, so we can. Somebody had to say it, so I came out with it. Other questions on page 6?
Would folks like me to follow up and get an answer on the workers' comp line?
I'd like one if possible.
Yes. And again, any of these questions, it seems to me is going to be beneficial for you guys so that you know, is it time to cut back on spending because we've added this and that's gone up, and like I said, we don't want to be in a deficit situation. So
nope, makes sense.
And all the encumbrances you can get in, personnel section, that should all be encumbered too. But all the benefit stuff, you should have a good idea what they are at this point.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, moving on to page 7. Okay, I do have a question under the community hall. I'm looking at the electricity line. Nothing has been spent. Does that mean nobody's using electricity while they're there? Because we know that the hall's being used.
I'm gonna guess that bill is being subsumed into another line, but I can definitely figure out what's going on there.
The community center hasn't been used hardly at all since COVID started.
Right.
Nothing going on there.
But to have nothing from
Yeah, it's
January
not a
to
zero.
March,
Yeah.
you know, there were things that it was being used for back in January and February. It just seemed to me there should be some electricity.
On that note, your town hall buildings are up, so maybe it got put in there.
Yeah, my guess is that charge is just slipping into another line somewhere. I'll look into it.
I'm adding it to the list.
Well, I especially want it because I want to be able to look at, that power usage over time once we go through our energy update through Eversource, and I'm really excited to see that positive change. So, well, I suppose it's a negative change in terms of wattage, but good for us.
Okay.
What about, what
ahead.
about contracted services under community hall? We've got 13,700%.
$100.
That's why I
Renee.
don't like percentages. It appears as though you got a refund for $136 from something. But I'm not sure why it would show up there.
Not a clue.
Makes the two of us.
Not a clue.
Okay.
Some things just happen.
That's true. It's the gremlin did it. Anything else on page 7? Okay, moving on to page 8. Okay, I'll start off with the alarm monitoring system. I don't know if that's an annual payment or it appears as though this time last year we had made a payment, yet there doesn't seem to be anything that's been paid yet. And I'm sure that that's the the regular alarm for the town hall.
I would assume so. It may be, twice a year and that payment hasn't been processed. I can actually, let me peek at the updated one and see if
That
if
one's
anything's been
usually
paid out.
annual.
Annual.
Yeah.
Oh, lightning.
You can keep it at your end of town.
Yeah, it's coming down good on our end here.
Yes, it
You
is.
keep it there.
So there's nothing spent in the one that Linda sent out today either. So I'd be happy to take a look and just double check that we didn't miss a bill, but I'm sure they'll let us know if we did.
Oh, most places are pretty good about letting you know if you don't
Yep.
make a payment. Yeah. At least the people I know do. Okay, anybody have anything else on page 8? Okay, I'm gonna toss something in here for under cemeteries because I can't remember. The repairs and maintenance. I thought that would include the mowing of the cemetery in town as well as any repairs to fencing or putting headstones back in place if some vandal came and shoved them around, but yet I'm not seeing anything expended.
Betsy can correct me here, but I believe the mowing contract is paid out through the trustees of the cemetery trustees, correct?
The cemetery trustees pay for perpetual care. Part of this money that's in this line was, remember we added last year because you have to pay for the non-perpetual care ones?
Right. So that's the repair and maintenance, but the mowing contract comes out of the trust
Not
fund.
all of it. The non-perpetual care mowing has to come from the town. It can't come from the perpetual care money. So there is, I thought it was like $1,500 you put in there last year. Part of that 3,000.
Sure.
But on that note, you've had a tree down in Harvey Lake Cemetery for 5 weeks now that's still not cleaned up. So they can't mow it.
I know that the trustees have been made aware of it and that it's in process.
Okay, do we have other questions on page 8? I'm looking at the clock and I want everybody to be able to go to bed soon, so. Anything else on page 8? I can't remember when Primex sends the bill for the town's general liability insurance. That might be something to just check to see if it's been in yet. That's a one-shot deal as well, as far
Yep.
as I can recall.
But that's another thing that I would personally like to see encumbered. We know what it's going to cost.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, on that one, of $56,000, which can make a heck of a dent in what your available funds are from
Sure.
this point forward,
Yep.
so. Anything else on page 8? Moving right along to page 9.
Part-time police officers.
Okay, that, you're looking at the second line under the police department, Paul?
179. It's expended about 3/4 of its budget.
Oh, the salary part-time officers?
Yeah.
I know that he hired some part-time officers, and again, this is the default budget, not reflecting the current staffing situation.
So again, that's an area that needs to be watched for, if, obviously, we need the police officers.
Yeah, I guess he's on budget for his total budget, so.
Right.
So if he puts on an extra officers because of COVID, does that get charged in here and reimbursed later or charged separately?
It would get charged here and reimbursed later at whatever rates we manage to get. But the number that's been kicked around right along is about 75%, right, Bob?
Yeah. Again, you've got several pots there. You've got the CARE
Correct.
money, you got the Gopher money, and then you got the FEMA money.
FEMA money.
Which at this point, we aren't even up to the threshold level to be able to apply.
Oh, how much more do we have to spend?
Quite a bit, because it only covers overtime.
Oh, okay. That answers that question. Are there other questions on page 9? Okay, moving on to page 10.
Gasoline.
I'm sorry, Paul?
Gasoline. 210, line 210. That reason they're encumbered, they've got an encumbrance in there for like $9,000.
Are we still on page?
We're on page 10.
Oh, I
In the
flipped
middle.
pages. Okay.
Line 210.
Right.
Or account 210.
Okay. So. My,
Usually open PO.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're actually in okay shape where they've got a healthy amount encumbered moving forward with a balance of an extra 4K beyond that as a buffer. So I think they're going to be pretty on track.
Well, maybe perhaps you can explain something to me that I'm no business guy, and incumbents and accruals are the same thing to me. In the business world, we wouldn't accrue or encumber something until it was actually paid for but hadn't booked. Are we doing something different at the town level?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The service was provided and complete, but it hadn't shown up in my financial records, I would accrue it. But I wouldn't forecast out to the end of the year and say, well, here's what I'm going to spend without really knowing what I was going to spend.
but you do the same thing with your household budget. You figure out how much am I going to have to pay for the year for rent or mortgage or whatever the case is to determine whether or not, with all of your known expenses, your utilities, your food, your gas, whatever, so you know whether or not you can take that European cruise. And this is pretty much the same kind of thing. If they know what the salaries are going to cost, assuming that there's no change in staff.
Well, if that's the case, then every line in this budget should have an encumbrance,
Exactly.
which seems a little bizarre to me, actually, but
Well, you
I
got
would think that encumbrances, well, again, I'm talking from a business standpoint, would be something that a service that had been completed, but had not shown up in my books yet.
There is a bit of a difference, Paul. You're exactly right in terms of strict cash accounting. But for the purposes of quarter to quarter and within an annual cycle, it's very helpful for the people like the selectmen who are trying to figure out how much money they have left to have made a good faith estimate. And that's what encumbrances are. It's a helpful mechanism. It's different from hardcore accounting.
So is there an RSA or something that actually covers this?
Municipal accounting is different than the real world.
There's no doubt about that. Okay, maybe I just, I'm bringing my business sense to this, and that probably doesn't apply.
Well, actually, Paul, it does apply for things like purchases. What we're looking at here is stuff like salaries that you're contracted for to pay till the end of the year.
No, this is like gasoline. This isn't a salary that I can.
That I don't know. I mean, it's possible.
This is how many miles I drive down the road.
Yeah, but it's also possible that he purchased, like you do with your oil.
Maybe he has a blanket contract.
Blanket contract.
Okay, that's possible.
I can't speak to that, but it might be something like that.
That one I'd buy.
If I could add, I do believe that because they have one company that they, and the officers have gas cards, they do the blanket purchase orders so that they know and can control the amount that is being expended under there without going over. Because
since I see him every month on the safety committee, safety complex committee, I'll ask him. I'll get the answer. All right, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, other questions on page 10?
I've got one question. What happened with the fire chief salary?
Default budget.
It's the default budget, correct. There was not a fire chief salary for a full-time professional chief in the budget that we're still working on from 2 years ago now.
On that same salary lines, Matt, I'm looking at the firefighter EMT salary line. And I don't know, almost 6 months in, it just looks really low. It appears that that's about what we paid last year, but I thought that we had hired additional firefighters and or EMT and or paramedics, and
we have. Which line number are you on?
Oh, actually, there's like 3 or 4 of them.
Okay, wait, I see it now. Salary firefighter.
Part-timers are on the part-time line.
Right, and the part-time line is almost used up.
That's
in comparison to the salary for fire full-time EMTs and all of this.
Yep, I think in the last couple of months, we've actually managed to make some new hires, which should bring those part-time and full-time lines in closer balance. I think in terms of the bottom line on the salaries, I think the chief's got a pretty good handle on it and is aware of where his costs are at in terms of personnel. I think, even that's a good example. On one line, you've got, 79% remaining, and on one line, 30% remaining. One's too high, one's too low. They're going to balance each other out pretty well. Luckily, the number on the one that's too high has a whole lot more money in it than the one that's too low.
But you had 3 full-time, one being the chief and 2 full-timers. You let 1 full-timer go. So there's part of it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ginger.
Yes.
I talked to Hal actually this month because, again, I'm on that safety complex committee, and I just happened to ask him how he was doing with the ambulance service.
Yeah.
And he said they had hired a couple of, I thought, I don't know, maybe it wasn't full-time, but they had hired a couple of paramedics, and I asked him how the income was, and he said the income was well above what what we had all hoped it would be to fund the equipment we funded last year. So that actually looks like it's going pretty well, according to Hal, when I talked to him a couple of weeks ago.
Well, that's very good to hear because that's the one thing we did not get in the revenue report that is going to be coming out to us because that's reviewed or handled by the town treasurer. And that is what we've gotten for ambulance billing receipts so far this year.
Yeah, Hal said it was very good.
Well, I like to see numbers, not just verbal projections. That's just the kind of girl I am. So hopefully we'll be able to get that as well for our next meeting for whatever that's worth. Are there other questions on page 10?
In the middle, contract, 238.
Next page.
Are we on page?
Middle of page 11.
Oh, we're on 11. Okay. You're ahead of me.
Okay. We've expended already 85,000 against a $42,000 line. Any idea why?
No, I'm having trouble even parsing what that line is.
My guess is community management fire, but I don't know that that's accurate because it doesn't seem to ring a bell with me.
Nor I.
Bob, do you have any suggestion on that one? What that
It's
is?
not communications, is that?
Well, that was my question.
Yeah,
Where
that's part of it.
Is that the capital area fund?
Part of it.
Yeah.
Certainly not the whole 85.
Yeah.
So something else must be in there.
I mean, if it is communications, then maybe that's where the equipment that was passed through the warrant article would be billed to, and then paid through the warrant. There was a whole bunch of radios that got passed on the warrant article.
Yeah, like 30 grand, 35 grand worth of radio, something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that should be against that account, not this one.
Exactly. That shouldn't be coming out of the operating budget.
No,
That should be against the warrant article.
straight warrant article.
That's how that gets accounted for.
Well, let me at least figure out what that line is, and then I'll be able to tell you why it's high.
Okay, that works.
So
Where
if those
it's-
radios were charged there, then they would need to be moved, Matt.
Correct. Yep.
Where it's close to the actual number but doubled, is it possible that possibly even in 2019 that we were paying 2018s and we're actually have 2 years in one? Because the number's so close, the double.
You know,
That's certainly something while you're checking that to see if that's what happened.
Sure. Yep.
Another
Yeah. I mean, and
possible-
it's hard for me to say what that is, especially where I can't, with any degree of certainty, tell you even what that line consists of. So now, considering it's that amount of money, I don't feel good about not being able to tell you what that is. So I'll check that out. I promise.
Okay. Other questions on page 11? The 243 line, Matt, the maintenance and repair building for the fire department.
Yep.
I know that there was some modifications made down at the narrow station. Can we verify if that's what this expense is? Or if it's not that, what line would the modifications have been applied to?
Sure. I can look into it for you. I know that the bottom line on those, on that work was pretty low. So
It was well over the $500 that we were initially told at a selectmen's meeting. Either that, or you guys know where to pick up bargain price stuff that nobody else can get to.
Well, I will say that they have been picking up some good bargain price stuff. So,
Well-
but I'll check on that line for you.
I would so appreciate that. Anything else on page 11? Okay, moving on to 12.
Grants and I guess the overall budget's pretty much spent. I don't understand how a grant comes in on the expense budget, but that's just me, my ignorance probably. It's $183,000.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what. Now, the grant that they got, that was last year for.
He did
radios.
just receive
Anybody
another
remember
one.
what that's for?
Yeah, you got one for that forestry
air
truck,
packs.
that big forestry truck he's got down the Narrows or something.
Yep, Airpacks was last year's grant. This
Right.
year, he has actually pulled in some additional grant funding. So again, my guess would be that this is an expenditure that'll then be later reimbursed.
Okay, so Betsy, Bob, you guys, Dan, you've been on as long as me. I'm trying to remember. Now we've got the grant match on the next line, so ignore me. If we can find out what that is, I would just hate to see it there and that affects your overall bottom line, because $183,000 is a lot of money.
A lot of money, absolutely.
Yeah. I did have a couple of questions further up regarding uniforms, gear for the fire department, training, and I would not expect you to have these answers. It would probably be the fire chief, but it just seems that if we've hired these additional personnel, that they would need gear, they would need uniforms. I know that we've got a couple of people that we were told a 2-3 months ago at a selectmen's meeting by the fire chief that they were going to be trained, and yet nothing is showing on EMS training, and they were being trained through the EMS program. So if we could check on that. Again, that would be a situation. I'm going to send them to EMS school. It costs $1,000 per. That would be a situation for an encumbrance,
Sure.
you know?
Yep. Nope. I'll check on it.
Terrific. Thank you. Anything else on page 12? Moving on to 13. We're halfway there, guys.
Line 299, down near the bottom, is another place for an encumbrance for your mowing contract.
Yep.
Yeah, and it surprises me that only $50 has been spent so far. When for the same time period last year, just under 4,000 was spent. So I'm just wondering where those bills might be, unless we've got somebody mowing the properties out of the goodness of their heart.
Probably not the case.
Probably not, but we could hope.
The contract was late this year. And the mowing started late. So it's part of it.
I got a question on line 295 under Highway Administration.
Yeah.
That line with 0 in it, how did they come up with the 10,000?
Right.
$271.84.
Not the foreman's salary?
That's the foreman's salary. Yeah.
Right, but the
Well,
problem
default budget,
you can't apply money to a line that has a 0 on it. That's why we went through last year. And that's the problem with the default budget, because we changed all of those lines in the proposed budget, but you can't change them in the default budget. But either way, internal accounting. So much on this salary line belongs to the foreman, but it can't show up on the foreman's line. You follow me?
I follow you. I do know that there's been some disagreement around that issue of spending on a line with a 0 versus a 1, and whether that's a hard and fast rule or not. So
That's DRA's
that's
rule.
DRA's rule, and that's what we usually have to abide by, is their rule. We've been hammered on that in the past several times when we forget it. But something to check into, because I've had all of those salary lines. I'm trying, how many people do we have working at the highway department, Matt? Do we know right now?
So so we are in the process, and you'll have to excuse me because I do sometimes conflate the staff at the transfer station because it falls under all Chris now. But I believe we are in the process of hiring a third in highway right now, is where we
No,
stand.
that was for transfer station the other night.
That was for transfer station the other night. Then I'm speaking out of school, and we have applications for highway.
So currently we have Chris.
And a part-timer.
Correct. Stewart.
Yeah.
Okay, so 1 full-time, 1 part-time. And we've got applications coming for, do you recall? I could probably look on the website and look at the job posting. I just don't remember if it was a full-time or a part-time.
I don't recall, but I think part-time.
Okay.
The
Again,
other position's full-time. The one that's in the part-time person is in a full-time slot right now. There's 2 full-timers down there. One is Chris and one's not hired yet. You're using a part-timer for.
Okay.
it's all very confusing. Okay. Other questions on page 13? Moving on to 14. Not hearing anybody. I'm gonna go with line
bring one up if you
the telephone.
I couldn't tell you, except for the fact that maybe the plan rates went up substantially, and again, it's a default budget that's now a couple of years old.
Yeah, but last year we paid just like
for that period.
$200 less for the same time period. And we were in a default budget then.
You changed phone systems.
Yeah, but that would be in June, not up to May.
No, that was done before COVID, I believe.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe there was telephone equipment and stuff that needed to be swapped out as well along with that. So I'm happy to take a peek at it.
Okay. While we're peeking, can we look at the electric for the highway department as well?
Yes.
Because there's a separate line for the recycling building electric, which the highway department is using. So I'm not sure what the extra electric for the highway department is for.
Yeah, I remember we spent some time on this when we were doing the budget last year. And I think we had it all figured out, and now we're back with the default. So let me figure out where things are being coded to and what's going where.
It's just a matter of where is it being applied, I think.
Yep.
I've got one. Well, comment. Line number 324 near the bottom. The block grant. That's what they were planning to use for Harvey Lake. Not, Harvey Lake was not part of the 350,000 that was in the warrant article.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything else on page 14? Okay, moving on to 15.
Down near the bottom, number 340.
Yeah, I noticed that.
We got rid of all the streetlights, so why do we have $1,000 already spent?
Yeah, we took all of those out a while ago.
I'll check it out.
And I've got a question up above on line 329, Matt, the culverts. Did we replace culverts on Ridge Road this year?
Last year.
Last year.
I think it was last year as well.
Okay, forget my question. Anybody else have anything on 15?
Nope.
Okay, 16. I'm just noticing that the telephone and the electricity for the transfer station seem pretty low in comparison to this same time frame last year. And I'm almost wondering if the street lightning should have been posted to the electricity line for the transfer station.
Could be.
'Cause
Possible.
That's about what the difference could be now that I'm thinking of it. Excuse me. Any other issues on page 16? I just have one more comment on the solid waste disposal. I'm hoping that.
Ginger, I got a simple question. How come things are not going in the same spot every time? You know what I mean? How come all these expenditures are not going in the same place? Okay, we're gonna buy milk today, goes in the milk budget, not in the bread budget. You know what I mean? How come it's always different? It's like we always have like these questions, why is this, why is that? How come it's not consistent? I don't get it. I'm a little confused. Almost like these trees broken down, you know, on expenditures for lighting. Okay, we got the highway department, we got the transfer station, we have whatever it may be, all in that one electricity thing. I'm a little confused by that. It seems like people are putting stuff wherever they want to put it, and that's why we're always going shaking our heads. Is it just me, or is anybody else confused like that?
No, what it is, I think, Stephen, is that we've had different individuals that have been paying the bills and therefore assigning this expense to a particular line.
And milk goes in them, and this goes in that, and this.
But if each department has milk, you have to put it with each department.
Yeah, but it always doesn't jive. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make any sense.
And again, we've had different finance people who the learning curve on doing this kind of stuff is kind of extended. And
Yeah.
we haven't had them with us for, hey, there you go, Eric, for any period of time to really become familiar with our accounts.
All right, because being a new person on the budget committee, it's just very confusing. I know you, Betsy, you guys are all seasoned veterans, and I really respect that, and that's why I listen a lot. Don't say too much, but try as a new person to break this all down. It's like, what the heck? It shouldn't be this difficult. It really shouldn't be. Going into my second year now, it's getting a little bit more easy to follow, but it just does not make any sense why things are placed where they are random, if you want to call it that.
I think the randomness becomes less random when you start to dive a little deeper into it, right? So there's funky issues like, the highway department is operating out of the recycling building. So where would you code the electric bill? to the highway department building or to the transfer station, right? I mean, so there are some, you know, we obviously are shooting for consistent coding and billing things off to the correct line. But I do think when we have turnover in personnel, it definitely affects our ability to get it 100%. So we're working on it.
The new guy makes it very difficult. You know what I mean?
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, you just have to stick
really
around longer.
be with on board with this. But man, these reports, like, okay, it's confusing as heck sometimes. Almost like you said, a one line item needs to be broken down in different trees. Okay, all this went into this one section. Why? I have so many whys on my sheets. You know, why? Get back to us. Why? You know, so I'm just like a little confused as why it has to be so difficult. And now I know the reason why, but it still to me doesn't make any sense. I'm not wrapping my head around it. Like Mr. Winslow, he does a hell of a great job in the school budget, and he's really consistent. He seems like I don't know who does his budget, but it seems like his budget is consistent. You know what I mean? Our budget is, okay, stick it over here. Doesn't make sense.
They have it.
Thank you for the compliment. I do want to point out there's a lot more departments at the town. It's a smaller budget, but there's a lot more, and there's kind of overlap too. You know, and there's been a lot more turnover at the town, and there's also 2 years now on a default budget. So it is really confusing to jump into it. You know, it's confusing for me too. You know, just kind of trying to throw Matt a lifeline here. It's tough. It's tough for his end too.
If you want the budget to look good, have all your friends and family vote for the one that we all put together this year, and then it's all going to be beautiful.
I'm not throwing dots. I'm just trying to express my thoughts on why it's confusing. You know, and I'm not the only one. I mean, people that are probably watching this are going, these people all across the board. They have no idea where this stuff is going here. It's crazy. Doesn't make any sense to me.
And Stephen, I wholeheartedly agree with you that there are some areas that don't make a lot of sense. And there's been plenty of questions asked tonight that I don't have a good answer for, right? But there's also moments where with something like, you know, why is the fire chief salary overspent? It's because there wasn't a fire chief salary in the budget that we're now working on for the, you know, third straight year. So, you know, those are some of the issues that we're stuck dealing with. But I hear you. I understand that. I'm sure it's frustrating.
One more question is too, why don't we have like a representative from the highway division? We don't have the fire chief handy so he can answer these questions. And
theoretically, I should be able to answer most of those questions. I am not the most well-versed with the budget out of the folks on our board. If Hal were here, he would have been able to answer probably half the questions that I'm leaving here with. And that's just the fact of the matter. So
I'll be honest with you, eventually down the road, I probably want to run for a select board position. I want to get a little more seasoned and exposed to all this craziness, but have a better understanding of it as well.
Yeah.
I don't plan on doing this and sticking with it as long as I get reelected.
Okay, to give you a little bit more information, Stephen, in the past, we would, a lot of times our finance person would come to a budget meeting and that individual, with very few exceptions, would be able to explain why X dollars was applied to this line or that line. And again, because of the turnover that we've had in the finance department in the last year and a half, we haven't had that stability. And we've had different people looking at the accounts in different lights. And I see Betsy's got her hand up.
So the former finance administrator knew the town. You've had 3 since then that aren't even residents. So maybe when you hire a replacement, maybe they need to go around and see the, you know, the different buildings, the different setups so that they understand the different light bills. They go to all these different sections and understand like the transfer station and the highway garage, and because all those are all separate light bills, every one of them.
Yep. No, I think that's a good point.
Good, a quick tour wouldn't hurt probably.
Yep.
All right, I'm done.
Okay, anything else on page 16? Okay, seeing nothing. How about page 17? I'm just curious, Matt, the last line, 397, the gasoline for animal control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure where
Why
the,
nothing's spent?
yeah, and why,
My guess it's probably getting lumped in with the
With the
with the
police
police
department?
the police fuel. Yep.
okay. That's the checking. Anything else on 17? Moving on to 18.
I have one.
Who's that? Betsy?
Question, I know you voted to give the food pantry money, but I don't see it listed, like, we have a support agencies and we list all of them. So if we can just find out where that was charged off to?
Yeah.
I thought I saw that. Hang on.
Well, I would have thought it would have been in that section, but
On page 18, I think.
It's on page 21 under donations.
Okay. What's Haven?
That is a rename for the, I think it was the Safe Place.
yeah.
They changed their name.
There's money there too.
I'm all set, Matt.
Thank you.
Missed that one.
Okay.
And
back-
if I can, just real quick, just
Go
for the
ahead.
public's information, the reason that we are, giving money to these organizations, that we rely on them as part of our sort of safety net for, welfare and public health. So where we are likely to refer folks to these agencies, that's why we're sending money their way on a yearly basis.
Right.
Well, they request it.
They do request it, correct?
Based on the previous year's services that they've provided for our residents.
Right.
And they don't get paid until they request us to pay them. And
Yep.
we've had years where that money went back into the operating budget because they didn't request it.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on page 18?
Nope.
Moving on to 19. I do have a question on 19, Matt, line 431, which is the welfare miscellaneous.
Okay.
Do you have any idea what that means?
Um,
Because we've got electricity, the heat and oil, and the rentals that we assist residents with if they qualify or whatever. I'm just not sure what the miscellaneous would be and why we've already.
So for example, I know that we did some assistance for funeral costs this year.
Yeah.
So it would be things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Other questions on 19? I hate to drag this out, but I do have several on the recreation, and since Matt's actively involved, I'm sure he can answer.
That's
these.
what I can talk about, guys. We're in good
Let's
shape.
hope so, Matt, because I'm holding your feet to the fire here. Okay, so I'm looking at line 433, the part-time rec director.
Okay.
I would really like a breakdown of that line because January 1st to March 31st, looking at that expense report, $4,061 and change had been spent, but we didn't have a rec director then. I can't remember exactly when the rec director, who I hear just resigned, came to us, but if it was in March, it was near the end of March. It wasn't before that, as I recall.
Can I jump in? I can remember at the fishing derby, which I believe was in February. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fry,
Yeah,
but I
she
know
had
that
just
the
been hired.
person was on then at that time.
Yep.
So
Okay, so do you recall beginning, middle, end, Brian?
no, I don't remember the exact date.
If we could get a breakdown of that line, Matt, because now we've got almost $7,600 spent as of now, but I'm trying to figure out what has been done that we would be paying a rec director when everything shut down because of COVID?
Well, we didn't choose to furlough her or anything, and she picked up a lot of additional tasks around town hall, and actually took on some additional tasks outside of the rec scope. So there was work for her to do, and then she was also planning for summer programming, fall programming, getting the beaches ready, permitting, all that stuff. So she was definitely working.
Well, I'm just looking at the $3,500 difference for 2 months and trying to figure out $1,500 a month. Then that's quite a bit for part-time. Or did she get changed to full-time?
No.
If we could get a breakdown, it's getting late and I don't want to belabor it too long, but if we could get a breakdown of that, just as we've requested for town administrator line and the finance director's line, that would be terrific. Lead coordinator, same kind of thing. Have we?
Yep. So league coordinator worked all winter through the basketball season. So that's where those funds got expended.
And sanitation recreation? I hear that and I'm thinking porta potties, but I'm sure it's got to be something other than porta potties since the 1st of January.
I would assume it's porta potties and cleaning related materials. I would say porta potties are probably the biggest chunk of that.
Those went out in March before COVID.
Where did those go, Betsy? Do you
They're everywhere. They're the rec fields and the beaches. They're all over the place.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for anybody else on page 19? Okay, how about page 20? Seeing nothing, how about 21? Still seeing nothing, how about 22?
So when you get the questions on 22, I'd like to bring something up.
Okay, well, we're on page 22, so what would you like to bring up?
So today when the governor spoke, he talked about revenue shortfall and projected $538.2 million shortfall in the next 2-year cycle. So that is going to definitely affect the towns. And I think we need to be wise to that. He also spoke about eliminating unnecessary spending and holding on capital projects as well. So I had sent the selectmen a letter in April asking them to please consider holding on some of the spending. And I think if we don't, we're going to be in trouble, and especially for fiscal year, calendar year 2021. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and a lot of towns have been talking about that. It's been all over the news. If we can't rely on the same level of funding that we receive from the state for our highway money that we get in, or education money, which they're talking about, it isn't as much, is not going to be there. That means we're either going to have to really tighten the belts or pray that somebody wins Powerball and makes $1 million donation to the town with no strings attached.
That won't happen.
Familiar?
So I'll say just it's certainly something we're aware of, and the messaging we're getting is that we're probably going to be okay in terms of fuel tax and room and meals for this year. Next year is definitely going to require a degree of austerity to make up for those revenue shortfalls. We're even, trying to be realistic about shortfalls we may experience in terms of people who can't pay their property taxes this year
Right.
due to unemployment. So, I'm guessing we're going to have a fair number of abatement requests. We're going to just have some non-payments, and we're going to have to figure out how we're going to respond to all of that.
And that's why the suggestion earlier on about putting encumbrances in the lines, because my concern is that you don't have a super clear handle on what monies you have discretionary issues, with hiring new people, for giving raises, for this program, that program, on a default budget, and not 100% sure of whether or not all the bills for everything that should have been paid up till now have even come in.
Yep.
That's my concern.
Yep. And I'll, in response to that, we're feeling, I will say that I personally feel pretty strongly about the handle we've got on our financial situation right now. I'd say we are definitely in a better situation than we were a year ago in terms of,
I hope so.
in terms of knowing what our numbers are and being able to trust in those numbers. Certainly Chairman Kreider is a numbers guy, and he is pouring through the budget nonstop, and he's looking for pennies here and there. So, and we're all dedicated to making sure that we're watching the budget, we're keeping an eye on it. We're talking about it constantly and checking in. So with every decision to spend money, part of that decision is certainly the fiscal responsibility that we owe to the taxpayers and the management of our resources.
So Matt, while we're in good shape this year, whatever we can save this year and put towards 21 and 22 is certainly going to help us out there.
Understood, and I agree. I also know that we're facing the reality of a default budget, and there's services and projects that need to be done. So it's sort of a tightrope to walk.
Yep, they're hard decisions.
Yep.
I get it.
So are there reports for like the COVID expenses, so we'd have some idea of what would we be looking at for reimbursements, and those, I think, 3 different pots, Bob, of money or whatever?
There's going to be more than that, but there's 3 that we have to work on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're tracking that, and we're getting, we're releasing those reports on an ongoing basis as well. We've been accepting the COVID expenditure reports as part of our weekly meetings. So I think Lisa's putting those straight up onto the website as we're going along.
I haven't found them.
You haven't seen them?
Haven't seen them.
All right, let me see where we're at with that and see what I can do about getting those to you.
Okay,
It would
thank
be
you.
nice if you guys could actually review your financial statement during your meeting instead of it being part of a consent agenda, because it gives the impression that you aren't reviewing it as a group, and therefore you're not 100% sure where you're at. A suggestion.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I think, well, I can speak for myself. I would like to think we're all looking at it with a strong degree of attention. So we understand the situation we're in.
And it's too bad you got the hot seat tonight, because if we'd been able to have a meeting back in April, then a lot of these questions that you got hammered with tonight would have already been cleared up.
Well, I got thick skin, so
Yeah, you got the short.
I can take the hammer in.
Maybe he'll be back again.
I doubt it.
We'll see. Look, you guys are a fine group of people, and I like you all.
However, I don't want to play with you any more than I need to.
We'll see how it shakes out. And like I said before, that now that Pam is on board, we're going to just take a fresh look at our committee assignments. So if it's me back here next time, that'll be great. And if it's somebody else, then you'll just have to deal with that. So.
And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about in just a couple of minutes, because I believe we're all set with the operating budget. Nobody else had any questions on the last page. So that being said, the next thing on our agenda, we do have some internal business in that we need to decide if we are going to fill our one vacancy. And if so, how?
Well, I'd suggest that as we have done in the past, is we tell people there's a vacancy on the budget committee. And if you'd like to serve, submit a letter indicating your interest and some minimal statement of why, what you would bring to the committee. I don't want to say qualification, sounds pretty formal, but
Yeah. Nope, that sounds good. Anybody else have
then the
thoughts?
question is, how do we, in the absence of the mighty Suncook Sun, how do we let people know that? Linda Smith, do you have a protocol for announcing openings?
Well, other than the town website and the forum, are we allowed to use that?
I don't see why we can't use the forum.
Okay, I don't know. At one point I got a directive that we were not to use them.
I believe that was a personal decision on the part of someone, but I don't believe that was.
Well,
a
I'll
board
check with the
decision.
well, actually, I'll check with the town administrator and
Why would that be any different than posting a position on there, which we've done in the last couple of weeks? So should be the same.
It just seems a shame to not utilize that resource.
well, it wasn't my choice. I'm just saying, I haven't heard any follow-up, and at one point I was told not to use them, so.
So can we as budget committee direct you to use it? For us anyway?
I will talk to the town administrator and get a clear understanding of where we're at with that and go forward from there.
Okay.
So
and-
I'll just, sorry, but my 2 cents is that as the budget committee, as defined under RSA, you've got the ability to, you can decide to do that here and now. And I don't think that would create too many waves.
No, I don't think it would
Well,
either.
if you're fine with it, I'm fine with it. I just didn't want to override somebody else's decision.
So, and the decision that you're referring to, I'm not actually aware of, and I know it certainly wasn't a board decision. So I would say,
Okay.
I would say you're safe.
Yep.
All right. I wasn't aware of that. I was understanding it was a board decision.
Unless it happened at a meeting I missed.
Nope.
Okay. All right. I would agree. We'll go forward and.
What about reaching out to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paul.
What about reaching out to Steve, I forget his last name now, but he ran for the 3-year
Mancini?
position. Yeah,
No, he's moved out of town.
oh, he has, oh, okay.
Yeah. We already thought of that. But he went and moved. So, okay.
What's the term that this person would serve?
From when they were appointed until March elections 2021.
This is a good time to put the word out, though, because that way somebody gets in and has at least one quarterly meeting, and then they're through the whole budget season.
Susan, what do you want to say?
I was tasked with writing thank you letters to everybody who applied to be for the selectman position. So one of the things I'm going to add to that is, hey, we have all these other boards that we're always looking for people. So hopefully, maybe we can get somebody out of that. So.
Well, maybe a general announcement put out between the forum and the webpage that we're looking.
Well, sure. But I was going to add like ZBA,
Yeah, definitely.
budget committee.
To those that applied or expressed an interest.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But we also have the extra requirement. We don't just want a name in a hat. We want, like Tom said, a letter, expressing interest in what they bring to the committee.
And somebody that can add 2 and 2 and come up with 4.
Right. I think Tom and I will probably get together via telephone or whatever. We've done pretty well in working up statements and that kind of thing. And I think between the two of us, we can come up with the verbiage for letting people know that we have a vacancy on the budget committee, and then we can forward it to Linda for Linda to post it.
There were
Trust me,
some really,
I already have it. I already have I have about 6 prior ones. I'll send to you, Ginger.
Oh,
You can
okay.
take a look at them.
We'll send it to both Tom and I. if you
Okay,
would, Linda.
will
That'd
do.
be Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that set. The only other thing we need to do is set our future meeting dates. This is what I am proposing. Because we have received those reports via email today, and we're going to be getting the hard copies within the week. Those need to be reviewed. We'll have minutes from this evening to review. We will also have answers to our questions, ideally, from both town and school. I really don't think this off. Oh, who's that? Not me. I put my phone away.
Sorry about that. I had to switch phones.
Oh, no problem, Betty. I don't think we should wait until the end of October to be able to get these answers and questions, whatever. And now we've got the vacancy that we need to address. I asked Linda if she could check on meeting dates, and she's actually going to go away and enjoy herself on the first meeting date.
No, we're not saying that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're
we're looking,
on a Zoom meeting, televised. Thank you.
sorry. The date that we're looking at is August 5th.
August what?
August 5. I gotta pull it up on my phone.
It's a Wednesday.
Thank you. So if we have that meeting, then we can also get and review the end of year for the school, which would be basically today's, but they'll have time to get it put together. And the towns, the end of June would be printed off on the 15th of July, which is what I've been informed by the chair. So that could be mailed to us. So hopefully some of these questions that we've asked tonight can be resolved for that report as well.
Sounds good.
Comments?
I'm just curious. So my understanding is we'll be reviewing obviously the minutes from tonight. We'll have
Right,
answers to our questions.
correct,
Going over last year's end of year that we didn't do.
correct.
And then we'll be doing the half year for the town and the full year for the school.
Which basically amounts to a month's more information than we saw tonight. Correct,
Okay, good.
correct. And hopefully we might even have a few takers for our vacancy.
So
I
what's
like, Ginger, you dream big.
Hey, you got a dream. Betsy?
what's your date you're going to use for someone to submit their letter of interest?
Depending on how quickly, we should be able to get that into, between Tom and I, we should be able to make a decision on which verbiage to use. Let's see, tomorrow's the 1st. What do you think, Tom? We ought to be able to come up with something before the weekend, right?
Sure.
So if we use the 24th of July as an example, that would give 3 weeks after it would be posted.
Sounds like plenty of time.
So nobody's at town hall on Friday, so should it be a Thursday? And who's it going to?
It doesn't matter because if it comes to me, I'm gonna receive them
Okay.
remotely.
So if
Because-
we're on Zoom, are they going to be sent out to all of us or what are we doing?
Yeah, we pretty much have to. In the past, what we've done is had the individuals come in and just give us a little talk, like when Paul was first appointed to fill a vacancy.
So why can't we put them on Zoom?
We would certainly need to include that in with the notice that they have the capability of being able to attend a Zoom meeting. Under the circumstances, there are still people who don't have internet, don't have computers. So we need to be certain that any applicants are aware that under these unique times, they're gonna need to be able to do that.
They can call in by phone though, right?
They could.
Okay.
How about we do this? I don't see, if I send you something tomorrow morning,
Yeah,
if you get it back to me by Thursday, I'll send it to the forum and put it on the website.
okay.
We should back it up maybe to the 20th or the 21st. That way I can,
Yes,
you know,
okay.
I could make them all into a PDF and send it
Right.
out to the committee
That
ahead
sounds
of
good.
time.
All right, so if we, let's see. Well, if we do the 20th, that's still gonna be 2 weeks that it'll be posted.
At the end of that week.
Well, that's gonna be cutting, that's what we were originally talking
Well,
about.
let's, I mean, if it's published by the, before the July 4th weekend and it gets into the forum, let's say Monday, the 6th, it's still 2 solid weeks.
That's 2 solid weeks.
Yeah.
And if we don't get any response, obviously, we won't be dealing with it at this particular time, and we'll just keep it out there, but, you know, we can repost it.
Okay. So you want to use what day do attention Linda Smith by when?
The 20th, 7/20.
20th. July 20th?
July 20th.
So can I suggest something?
Sure.
You want to do July 21 in case somebody's on vacation and doesn't see it until they get back? It's at least the second day into the week.
Okay, let's do July 21 at 4 PM.
Okay. If that works for you, Linda, that works for us.
Sounds good.
So our next meeting is August 5th?
Correct.
And we will assume it will be a Zoom meeting.
Oh, unfortunately.
They're all going to be, Tom.
No
Flipping voice of doom over there.
Reality.
Yeah,
No.
I think it's a realistic view.
You also
Oh,
can't
then
fit in a town hall unless you have a different venue. Town hall meetings were capped at 12.
Yeah, needlessly, but that's another issue. I'm gonna be working on the possibility of another venue, seeing what options we have, and then I can report it back to you guys and we'll figure out what we're gonna do.
So is that 12, Bob, on your numbers? I know that's what the selectmen came up with, but
That's what the selectmen are the ones who have the authority to set the numbers.
okay.
In any event, do we have any other business that anyone can think of?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, who motioned to adjourn?
Ted.
Thank you, Ted, just so I can keep notes and to help Susan.
Yep, Betty seconded.
Betty seconded it. I'm assuming that there's no discussion. Therefore,
We do the thumb up
we
motion?
have to do a roll call to adjourn. Susan, are you still here?
That's funny.
She is, Ginger. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I was.
I just
gonna
had to
do
get
it
my
if you weren't.
list of names out again.
No, I was gonna do it if you were.
Want to do it? It doesn't
No,
matter.
that's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. Betty,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Ted Wilkinson,
Yes.
Tom Chase,
Yes.
Brian Winslow,
Yes.
Eric Buckland,
Yes.
Dan McNally.
No, I'd like to stay a while longer and just chat.
Okay,
Funny man.
Dan staying
By
on.
yourself, Dan.
Betsy Colburn,
Yes.
Matt Fry,
Yes.
Bob Young,
Yes.
Brad Hall. Brad Hall. Brad Hall.
You're
Is he
muted,
muted?
Brad.
Yeah, he's saying yes.
Okay, Stephen Robinson.
Sorry about that. Yes.
It's okay. Paul Tudor,
Oh, yes.
Mike Tobin,
Yes.
and Ginger Dole.
Yes, we are adjourned at 10:05 and our next meeting will not be this long. So everyone have a wonderful few weeks until we meet again.
Right on.
Thank you, Ginger.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Thanks for hosting, Susan. Great job.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
I really appreciate the help from both of you guys.
Thought it went very well.
Be fine.
I had a lot of fun. I'm going to fight to be the rep now. So
I think you should, Matt.
I'll see you in a month.
All right.